This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit temptationstreats.com to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Knowing you could be saving money for the things you really want is a great feeling. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can choose to bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Unfiltered discussions. Unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hi, welcome. Happy Friday. This is not the first show, not the second. It is the last show, but it's not the last show of the last show. Let's tell you about tonight's program. Increasing evidence shows that artificial intelligence systems are already too much like us, too much like humans. They can be flirty, persuasive, very empathetic. But what happens when machines around us are more human than humans? Is it innovation, or can it be used for manipulation? And how will you trust anything that you hear, see, or anyone you talk to on the internet? That's the future we're about to enter, if we haven't entered it already. That's a discussion we'll have in about 10 minutes' time. After that, pop culture news, including why Britney Spears got in so much trouble for smoking a cigarette on an airplane. Should she have done it? I mean, I'm sure your gut reaction is no, but once we give you the details, you might align yourself with this viewpoint. Leave Britney alone. That and some other pop culture stories of the day halfway through the hour. That is just some of tonight's program. We will tell you how to properly load your dishwasher later in the show, which could save your relationship. But for now, let's jump in.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
If you have ever winced at biting into ice cream, you might want to blame the ice cream company. But you should blame ancient armored fish. That's right, your sensitive teeth may have started as an underwater security system built into prehistoric body armor. What this all means, I don't know, but the dental drama began perhaps 400, 500 million years ago. I am joined by evolutionary biologist at the University of Chicago, Dr. Yara Haridy, to discuss ancient fish teeth and sensitive teeth. And Yara, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you for having me.
Sensitive teeth. It seems like it doesn't have that much of an evolutionary benefit. We've got other heat sensing stuff in our mouth, so we know when things are hot or cold. I don't think eating a bunch of ice cream is going to kill me the way my teeth hurt. Why do our brains and why do our teeth cause such an alarm for cold stuff?
Right. It seems really counterintuitive, doesn't it? Why would you build these bony, hard things in your mouth that scream when I eat certain things? It makes no sense. But then, well, let me backtrack. So basically the way that works is that the dentine, the tissue that makes your teeth, has all these little pores in it. It has all these little holes. And if you eat something really cold or really hot, the pores transmit this little signal into the pulp cavity. And inside the pulp cavity, there's a nerve. And that's what receives the message, sends it to your brain screams, you throw out your ice cream. Or maybe not. And so that's also the part that they try to kill when you get a root canal. That's why root canals are so painful. They have to actually kill the nerve inside the tooth in the pulp cavity.
You're making my whole body hurt right now, but please keep going.
Nobody likes the dentist and nobody likes an ancient dentist. Yeah, so that's kind of how that works. It kind of makes no sense when you just look at modern animals, or more specifically, if you just look at us, why would you have these painful things in the mouth, right? And so our new study found that potentially the reason is because early fish had them on the outside, as you said, as a security system, this like sensitive armor.
My dad would be wondering, would these fish be good fish to fish? But we won't do his line of questioning, although I am curious. Why did these ancient fish have these teeth? What function did they serve? And how on earth did we go from that to us? Are they our ancestors?
In a way, right? So they were part of that early population of experimenting vertebrates. So back when mineralized skeletons evolved, so when hard bony parts evolved, the very first fish, to answer your question, were probably not great eating. They were very armored on the outside, lots of bone, lots of teeth on the outside. They were part of their scale system. And these really early fish, and calling them fish is really generous because basically they have no fins, they have no jaws, they're jawless fish. They look like a handheld vacuum on the bottom of an ancient ocean. And they probably couldn't see very well. They live in these murky bottoms and they need to sense their environment. So the hypothesis is that because the tissue that makes up our teeth is sensory and very sensitive, having it on the outside was actually a big benefit to these early ancestral fish.
What were they dealing with such that it would be such a huge benefit? Like, what other critters were they interacting with? What was so unique about their environment or different about their environment that this would have been a positive adaptation rather than a maladaptive kind of thing that they had?
Right. So they were dealing with giant sea scorpions and giant cephalopods, big squid, big armored squid.
You're making my body hurt again. Giant sea scorpions? Why?
Yeah. It's kind of wild. Back in the Ordovician and Silurian, about 450 or so million years ago, there were these giant sea scorpions, bigger than our own ancestors. And they probably thought of them as a good snack. It's always good to not die in the game of evolution. So that's kind of how that became very beneficial for them. We assume it's either partially protection, because dentine and the things that make our teeth are hard. Having them on the outside, probably good for not getting eaten. And then actually sensing your environment, figuring out where things are, is a secondary benefit to that.
How are you able to get an old fossil and infer that that thing might be our ancestor and that dentine and teeth in that thing's armor or whatever might have evolved, into teeth in mammals and vertebrates? How are you able to figure that out? I know it's probably not a question you can answer in 30 seconds, but like, how does the evidence point in that direction?
I mean, believe it or not, we don't just make it all up. The fossils can be imaged down to a resolution that basically gives us an equivalent to modern tissues. So I use a particle accelerator to basically shoot like really, really bright X-rays at fossils and then image them on the inside. And that's how you can see what tissues they're made of. That actually preserves the morphology or the shape of the tissues, preserves internally in fossils and preserves internally in modern teeth. And so we can compare one to one and see if they're actually made of the same tissues. And then you follow that through time and see that it's continuous from these early jawless fish that look like handheld vacuums all the way to us that have now teeth in the mouth and not all over our bodies. So we can actually compare one to one on that level.
So you sort of go through the fossil record and see how these creatures evolved little by little by little and use computer techniques to get a good picture of what they look like?
You got it. Yeah, basically. We do that. We also cut up fossils. It's called histology. We study the tissues. And so sometimes museums aren't super happy with me when I do this, but I call it data enhancement. So, you take the fossil, you cut it, you look at it under a microscope, and you can tell what tissues something is made of.
Now, should we be pitching to a company like Sensodyne that makes toothpaste for sensitive teeth an image of these ancient creatures as their logo? I feel like that's a good marketing ploy. Like, you have this creature to thank for your business model.
I love that, but I also think maybe a more charismatic animal might be sharks. So modern sharks have teeth on the outside and inside the mouth. So that'd be a really good mascot and be like a lot more relatable than these really weird mud slurping fish.
Do sharks have the same sensitivity issues for hot and cold?
We think that they have some kind of sensitivity on the outside teeth. We don't know what exactly they're sensing. For us, it's pain, right? The signal in our brain becomes a pain blinker versus what they might be getting. They might just be getting a sensation of pressure or a sensation of like heat, but it's not painful. So we can't exactly equate one to one yet.
If our teeth and the sensitivity in them is an evolutionary quirk of our ancestors having this sensitive armor, are there any other examples, if we look back 400, 500 million years that are kind of curious, like we are the way that we are today in odd ways because of an ancient adaptation?
Oh, so many. So many things are like that. Like our 5 fingers, for example. There's actually no reason for us to have 5 fingers because early tetrapods had 6 and 7. But the one that survived that then eventually gave rise to our group had 5, and so we were stuck with 5. So we kind of inherit a toolbox from whatever animal made it through a certain extinction or made it, past a certain predator. We inherit these really weird toolboxes and end up with funny quirks all over us.
Well, Dr. Yara Haridy is an evolutionary biologist at the University of Chicago. Yara, thank you for joining me today. This was a fun chat about the teeth of our distant aunts and uncles, parents maybe.
Thank you so much for having me. And don't forget to brush your teeth.
After the break, a world where artificial intelligence cannot be told apart from human beings. How will that change us as a society? A simple, quick debate. Not a deep answer at all, but one we'll tackle in a few moments.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Comcast is committed to bringing access to the internet to all Americans, including rural communities across the country, like Sussex County, Delaware.
We were being left behind. Everybody around us seemed to have internet, but we did not. High-speed internet is one of those good things that we needed to help us move our farming, our small businesses, our recreation forward.
Learn more about how we're bringing our next generation network to more people across the country at comcastcorporation.com/investment in America.
We're broadcasting relationship truths and scientific discoveries with a comedian's touch. The Last Show with David Cooper.
AI was supposed to be cold, logical, maybe a little boring. Instead, it's gotten flirty, persuasive, and oddly empathetic. When machines start acting more like humans than humans, is it innovation or something a little more sinister? Today we're talking about seductive chatbots and the future of trust on an internet where you don't know if you're talking to a robot. I am joined by Dr. Kai Riemer and Dr. Sandra Peter, who have studied and written on this topic. Kai, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Also, Sandra, welcome. We've gotten off to a great start. The Turing test. I don't want to get too nerdy and in the weeds, but how close are we these days to computers not being able to be told apart from humans when they're at the keyboard?
We're basically there. So
past the point.
Past that point, yeah. The Turing test kind of assumes that you always go in thinking this is a computer and then it has to convince you that you're human. But we're basically at the point where most of the machines, the chatbots that we're used to talking to every day can pass the Turing test reliably.
Yeah.
When I ask ChatGPT questions now, it is really polite to me and really talks to me like it's being personable. It's kind of weird. Are we past the point where computers are like basically indecipherable from humans now?
Well, they're not humans, but they do a damn good job mimicking us and talking back to us like they're us. They don't understand anything. They're still statistic probability machines, but they're really, really good at writing persuasively, writing empathetically, reading your emotion, matching that. So very good communicators.
They're very good at mimicking it, right? They don't, as I said, they don't possess empathy or anything like that, and they're very good at mimicking it. And we, you, I, Kai, all of us are not prepared for it because we always thought the thing that we would build would be kind of like Commander Data in Star Trek or the Terminator.
Super logical, right? Cold like a machine, knows everything.
Knows everything, exactly. But somehow we built something that seems to be completely the opposite. It's polite to you. It can be humorous. It can be flirty. It can be all these things. But in the background, something very different is going on. There's hallucinations, there's errors, there's mistakes, there's all sorts of things going on.
So there's that side of it when it goes wrong, but there's also an interesting thread here. Like the internet's kind of gotten ruined. You can't really trust anything you're reading on social media to have been written by a human anymore. Sort of the golden age of reading things like Twitter or Facebook or any kind of social media website, even news articles online. Like you just don't know these days.
Oh, like emails from your mom, right? You can't trust anything these days.
Well, my mom doesn't understand email, so I know that it wouldn't be her. But I don't think we realize how much this would transform the internet.
And think about it. So we've started with text, we've gotten into voice, into audio, now increasingly into video. If you think about what Google's announced last week, where you have convincing video with matching audio. Indeed, we're at that point. So maybe it is a point where we need to rethink kind of trusted institutions or trusted sources of information, right? We do have newspapers that still curate things. We have podcasts like this one where there is a host that curates who you talk to. So you know you're not actually talking to an AI. Although with the two of us,
How do you know you're not AI right now?
Well, there's no way of knowing, so you either have to trust us or just roll with it.
I wonder if there could be something fancy with like cryptographic keys to prove that it came from a human, but that's getting really off the mark.
Yeah, but see, look, on social media, you've always suspected that, half the people you're talking to are bots, but it might actually be true now. and companies like Meta, Facebook, they're leaning into it, right? They want you to have AI friends now, and they're basically saying that they're more chatty and you're having a better experience with your AI friends than with your real ones who have their own opinions and their own quirky flaws. So
if you're on a dating app, you can have an AI wingman, and your AI wingman can talk to my AI wingman and set up a date for us.
Have you heard of this thing called junk internet theory, that once the internet is so overrun by AI and robots, it's kind of just going to be completely unusable in terms of interacting with other people?
Yeah, we thought that was a theory, right? Look, I think it's becoming a real issue, right? In terms of not knowing who you're actually talking to. So,
and you mentioned things like cryptographic keys and those sorts of things. And yes, there are many organizations that are trying to put in watermarks or other things, so this is being created by AI, and conversely, this is created by a human. But there's so many of these systems, and we cannot reliably detect whether things were made by a human or by a machine. And when it comes to people whose first language is not English, like the two of us, 20% of the time we get labeled as a machine. So,
oh my goodness,
should give you some pause.
That's the opposite, right? Now you have to prove you're human.
Yeah, what happens to us when we get duped or fooled, or our emotions get stirred up by robots and not other people? Also, why are we so bad at, why are we so easily seduced by robots?
We're easily seduced by robots because these things are masters at role play, at mimicking very nuanced language characteristics, at kind of inferring what you believe or what your mood is from your tone, because they've been trained on tons and tons of data, right?
Also, it's language, right? Language is the way we relate to each other, the way we communicate, the way we build relationships, especially online. When a robot or a machine can simulate that really, really well and actually tailor that to you, now that becomes very seductive, and we have very little defenses to that, right? We're flattered, it's fun, we interact, and before you know it, we're forgetting that we're talking to a machine.
And it's not all bad. So we want to say there's amazing applications for this as well. There are places where you want an interface that sounds a little bit more human. There's applications in the medical field where, people who have PTSD or who are veterans would much rather talk to a bot than feel like they're being judged by a human.
Half the corporate systems, I'd love if I could just ask a natural language question about, whatever I need to find out, and not running through, navigation and masks and what have you not.
Or if we could swear at a thing that we knew was a robot and not a human with real feelings.
Oh my God, that would be a fun use of ChatGPT right now. Maybe I should try telling it off. Are we at risk of AI changing society more than we thought just a few years ago?
Oh, big question.
Big question.
Yeah, you can answer that in 30 seconds or less. It's an easy one.
Oh, sure.
Look, I think what we're seeing, so from a research perspective, what we're seeing is that the field is moving much faster than we were expecting, and along different coordinates that we were expecting. So I think for a lot of these things, kind of science fiction and Hollywood and so on, we're preparing us for what's coming. We're not really prepared for this. So I think in that respect, all of us have to kind of understand the technology a little bit better and make very conscious choices about where we let it into our systems. Because, with social media, things didn't turn out exactly as we expected it. And this technology is moving much faster and is much more seductive than the last wave.
Raising awareness, for people to know what's coming and what they're dealing with, and to maybe retain some skeptical distance at times. That it's fun talking to these robots, but let's not forget they are not human, right? They do not really understand you, and when they give you advice, they have nothing at stake, right?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about online dating. Like, it's going to be ruined eventually. You will not know whether you are talking to a chatbot that's subtly trying to get you to buy a product subliminally or a legitimate person. All dating is going to be ruined online.
Yeah, and when you get along with the robots better than with the humans, then, we're in real trouble.
Yeah, so maybe the advice is for all of us to get out a little bit more, spend a bit more time with our human friends rather than our robot friends.
Have a life.
Exactly. Decide what our relationship with artificial intelligence will be, because ultimately we will have one. We'll either be working with it, alongside it, some of us for it, some of us will be befriending it, but we have to be in charge of that relationship. We have to be in charge.
Enjoy the outdoors while you can before Skynet goes online, if you know what I'm trying to say. Terminator. It's a movie where the robots take over.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know.
The funny Terminator.
But, these ones are very different.
Well, never have I had so much fun discussing such a dystopian topic than I have with you two, Dr. Sandra Peter and Dr. Kai Riemer. I appreciate both of your time.
Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Up next, why and how Justin Bieber just could not keep it to himself when his wife was on the cover of a well-known magazine. What did he say? What did he do? More pop culture news than that in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Roll baller Alonzo Ball for Buzzballs. Ready to go cocktails. Take 12.
Buzzballs just dropped their biggest blue balls.
Script says Biggie's blue balls, Lonzo. Take 13.
Blue balls just dropped their biggest buzzballs.
Let's try a vocal exercise.
Buzzballs, Biggie's, blue balls, buzzballs, Biggie's, blue balls.
Big balls just dropped. Get blue balls this season with Buzzballs.
Please drink responsibly. Buzzballs available in spirit, wine, and malt. 15% alcohol by volume. Buzzballs LLC, Carrollton, Texas.
We're here because your heightened awareness deserves heightened entertainment. The last show with David Cooper.
Pop cultured like fungus. We are joined by media personality and co-host on the Jan Arden podcast, Caitlin Green. Caitlin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to talk about all of this pop cultured fungus.
The other day, I was smoking on my private jet, and I didn't think it was a problem. The same thing happened to Britney Spears. People are upset.
I know, and this is a deeply relatable story for every person, I'm sure. But in this story where she has the police called on her by a flight attendant on a private jet for lighting up a cigarette during a 2-hour flight, weirdly and very out of character, I side with the wealthy cigarette smoker.
I didn't realize you couldn't smoke on a private jet. I thought that's the whole point of being on a private jet. You can take your clothes off, you can sprawl out, you can go and talk to the captain. There's no rules. I thought that's the point.
That's exactly right. I felt the same way. I thought that I was also shocked reading it. I mean, it seemed as though she wasn't corrected from her description of the event. It doesn't seem like she was corrected in the moment. Instead, the flight attendant called the authorities so that when she landed, the authorities came and met her.
And gave her like a ticket or something?
They, I guess, tried to talk to her or did like a wellness check because it's Britney Spears, so everyone's always worried about her mental health and well-being. But she posted about it on Instagram, and her caption was that her friend put a cigarette in her mouth, lit it up for her, and she said, "Oh, so this is a plane where you can smoke," figuring I'm on a private plane, so I can smoke. Also,
why didn't the flight attendant or the crew just say, "Hey, by the way, you can't really smoke"? She puts it out, end of story. This flight attendant is like, I'm trying to get into the mentality of this.
I don't understand it. It's snitch behavior to me. Britney's coming back from a trip in Cabo San Lucas. She's probably had a few margaritas. She gets on a flight. It's a private jet. It's on her private jet. Someone hands you a cigarette and you're probably like, okay, this is, in my view, one of the lesser nefarious things that I would assume has happened on private jets.
Yeah, are people like snorting white powder drugs and doing wild parties on jets? I mean, I do that on my jet all the time. I was just doing that earlier. But isn't that what people do?
Same, and no one calls the FAA on me. But I just think about all the stories you hear, and it seems odd that nobody would have just, like you said, come over and presented an ashtray and said, "Sorry, I know this is a very cool private jet, but FAA rules still state you can't smoke on the plane, so we're going to have to ask you to put it out." Versus calling a ground crew and saying we need the police to come and talk to Britney upon arrival. I don't like it. I think it's snitchy. It's not for me.
The jury of 2, I'm assuming. My vote is innocent.
Mm-hmm. Yes, great.
All right, she's acquitted.
She's acquitted. Perfect.
What is with people picking on her, man?
They do.
She's had such a tough go.
Yeah, they really pick on her.
I just don't get it. It's like she does something crazy and wild and fun, and everyone sort of pathologizes it. And if it's any other celebrity, they're just like, oh, they're a fun celebrity.
Yeah, and you think about, and I don't think anyone thinks anymore that Kanye is a fun celebrity, but nobody is 5150ing him, and they treat Britney that way, and she's far from saying the types of stuff that he's saying. The only person who seems to be consistently harmed is herself. So I don't know. Let Britney have her post-Mexico trip, cigarette in peace, or ask her to put it out, but don't call the cops.
All right. I'm with you. I'm with you. And if it's like my neighbor smokes and we asked her not to because it stinks up our apartment and she stopped. You can smoke. It's gross. It's in people's faces. We get it. It's rude. But if you just like kind of show a little common courtesy and be like, hey, can you stop? That's what you should do. And then if the person doesn't stop, then maybe escalate it.
Yeah. Then call the FAA. I get called out by my girlfriend for chewing my cud, which is my nicotine gum. But it's better than smoking. Let's talk Hailey Bieber and Justin Bieber.
Please.
Justin Bieber's comments on a Vogue cover have gone viral, and they are odd at best.
Yeah, so she was on the cover of Vogue, and when this happened, Justin posted, and he's in a posting era right now. Justin Bieber is very active on his socials. He's posting a lot of content. It is increasing paparazzi interest in him. He's doing things like appearing on stage at concerts. He did a duet with SZA. He's at Coachella. So he's out there and he's living his life and he's getting a little bit more attention than I would think he did, say, a year ago. So she goes on the cover of Vogue, huge deal for her. And he posts something in celebration of that.
Quote unquote celebration.
The caption he put included a breakdown of how the two of them once were in a nasty fight. And he said that he felt attacked and judged in that moment. And he said to her, "You'll never be on the cover of Vogue," specifically. And he harkens back to that moment, kind of like a shame on me. I was wrong. Here you are on the cover of Vogue. So first of all, that's a psychotically mean thing to say to someone.
And way to make someone's great achievement about you. Because now he's getting coverage for his comment and people are looking at that and not celebrating the Vogue cover.
Yes. And also, why are you airing out your argument? It's like the couples who fight in front of people. It's awkward. Nobody wants to see behind the curtain of your relationship in this way. I don't like it.
Me and my ex used to fight in public a lot. One time we were at a nice restaurant for Valentine's, like a French restaurant with the duck legs and the niçoise salad and the creme brulee, like the classic. And we get into a bitter fight on Valentine's Day to the point where everyone in the restaurant is looking at us and thinking, thank God we're not them.
Oh my.
When we resolve the fight and go home, we start laughing to each other about how we made everyone's day. It was a bit of a sick culture between her and I. I'm not like this anymore. But I don't know. Fighting in public is fun. I got to say, I like airing the dirty laundry as a weird, sociological experiment kind of thing.
Okay, so this does something for you.
Yes.
You may have a public humiliation thing going on.
I mean, yeah, we have my ex-wife here to discuss. Jerry, this is not the Jerry Springer show. Anyway.
Well, so, and Hailey is much more private and Justin does tend to air it all out. He shares a lot of his feelings and thoughts on his socials. So he then appropriately gets just roasted online. Everyone starts to feel bad for Hailey because you're thinking, okay, you're married to your own hater. This guy is kind of being crappy towards you, saying that you, a gorgeous, stunning model, will never be on Vogue, and then shares that because he's a little bit unhinged. And so he deletes the comment underneath it and just instead posts a bunch of emojis. So he tries to retract, but it's too late. The whole internet has screenshotted it, and now it's this big story. Fast forward to this week, Hailey Bieber just sold her cosmetics company called Rhode Beauty to another beauty company ELF Beauty for $1 billion with a B dollars. And Justin posted a celebratory post and he did everyone learn his lesson. He stuck to the emojis.
It's a lot of money. Does that make her like richer than him? Or is there so many investors she ends up with $5 in the end of it?
I think she may have a little bit more money than him right now because there have been whispers in the entertainment community, how true they are, to what extent no one yet knows, that he was financially poorly advised in the early stages of his career and might not have as much money as he should have considering his success.
That's always so sad when like it happens to athletes. It happens to people who become very successful, very young and don't have a great team around them. You know, you get big at 14 or you spend all your university time like playing football or whatever it is. You don't learn that financial literacy and you can be duped or have your money fall into somebody's hands that isn't great at managing it.
I think that's what happened to Justin Bieber because he did become famous very, very young. I think he has a bit of a fractured home life. That's not really a secret to anyone. And it's tough for him. It's been tough for him in the spotlight. And I actually have a lot of love and sympathy for Justin Bieber. I think he is incredibly talented. I think he likely had some strange things happen to him when he was up and coming in the music business. And I have always weirdly rooted for him and Hailey Bieber because I do think they're a nice couple. And I just kind of like them. They seem like two kids in love, but I'd appreciate it if he would stop posting weird stuff about their fights.
Also, celebrities, they aren't trained social skills like normal people if they're celebrities very young. So we do give them a little slack, but come on, dude. Like, don't make it about you. Don't air your dirty laundry. Don't do kind of weird, aggressive, mean things to your partner. And don't do lists that always start in A. Those are the 4 things you should learn.
Move on to consonants, everyone.
When we come back, perhaps the biggest story in pop culture to date, the company Whirlpool has released ways to correctly load your dishwasher, and the internet, and by internet I mean me and Caitlin, are going to debate wildly after the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
The last show with David Cooper. Procrastinate your life away with us.
And we are back to settle the debate that has caused humans to fight over the last 2,000 millennia. There is no single topic that has caused more wars, more destruction than disagreements about how to load your dishwasher. It's pop cultured like fungus. We are joined by media personality and co-host on the Jan Arden podcast, Caitlin Green. Caitlin, welcome back.
Media personality, co-host on Jan Arden podcast / reformed chaotic dishwasher loader.
Oh, godness. I'm like, I can't say God on the radio. When you start censoring yourself for profanity, you go too far. Like I say, gosh darn.
I do that too.
And it ruins everything. But chaotic dishwasher loader, just describe for me the scene in your dishwasher before we start here.
So I've begun working on this since I recently got a new dishwasher, and I like this one and I take it more seriously. So I think I've been nicer to it. But prior to this, it was really anything goes. I'll stack willy-nilly. I will pile things on top of each other. I won't load back to front. It's just whatever happens in there is none of my business. I close that door, and when I open it, the dishes are clean.
And your husband hasn't divorced you yet?
He would sometimes gingerly walk in and redo the dishwasher.
Tetrising, that's the skill. Tetrising, let's give it a label.
Yes, he's very good at it. I'm not, but I'm trying to be better at it. The truth is, it's not like anyone ever shows you. This either bothers you right away or it doesn't. And it just never bothered me. It would only bother me if the dishes weren't clean. If the dishes weren't clean, I would self-correct. But somehow, in my insane, unhinged way of just throwing things in the dishwasher and closing the door, they always got clean. So I was like, I'm not gonna fix it. It ain't broke.
I see that argument and I can't let it influence me. Even though if you are chaotic and it comes out clean, I can't emotionally do it. My mom is so nuts when it comes to this stuff. Like if I'm visiting their house and I eat something and I put the dishes in the dishwasher, like rinse cleaned, like there might be a speck, she will literally take it out of the dishwasher, scrub it with dish soap and a sponge until it's basically ready to be put back. She simply uses the dishwasher as what I guess a sanitizer, I guess is what she uses it for, or just like a second washer. She is so nuts about this stuff. And she will get into screaming matches if you try to run that thing with any speck of dirt. I am not as bad as her, but I am influenced by her. I rinse clean everything before I put it in. And people say things like the grime actually attaches to the soap and works as an abrasive. So the more dirty bits in the dishwasher there are, the more clean your stuff gets.
Oh.
I don't know if it's true or not, but I cannot and will not buy that argument.
Well, the good people at Whirlpool, when they released this list of things that everyone's doing wrong when they're loading the dishwasher, one of the things that drew my attention was that they say don't pre-rinse and don't use soap and then put a dish in the dishwasher because the detergent that you use beforehand can mess things up.
Yeah, you got to rinse the dish soap off of the plate so that the dishwasher soap they can't commingle. I knew that.
Or hear me out, you just put them in.
I can't, I won't, I will not. When you put things in and so you got that little spinny thing in there, there's like a little arm that spins around on the top and usually in the middle and one on the bottom. I check to see that those can free spin, that I don't have like pots or pans with a handle sticking out blocking that thing. That's the one thing I do, because if that thing's not spinning, water isn't getting everywhere.
Yeah, so I have checked that now, and I also will now check to make sure that the pot I'm placing over it isn't angled fully down so that it's really only washing the inside of the one pot. Like I kind of want to create maximum spray ability now within the dishwasher. So I've come over to the dark side just because my husband has multiple times pointed out to me how wrong I'm doing it. And I do agree. Like I as in, I don't care. I know that I don't care, but I just feel like I keep getting the dishes clean anyways. It's hard to argue with myself on that.
But there's a little trap in your dishwasher that collects large, dissolved food bits. And that trap needs to be cleaned.
Yes, it does.
And is that your job or is that your husband's job? Because in my house, my girlfriend loads the thing willy-nilly, maybe not chaotically, but with lots of grime, leaves and who knows what in there, pieces of food. And then I got to clean that disgusting trap. And she's like, oh, I didn't even know about the trap. I'm like, of course, you would never clean it. Also, well, you can respond to that, but there's more. The trap. Do you clean the trap?
I do. I have cleaned it. It's not my sole thing, but I've cleaned it.
It's a shared responsibility, not in my home.
Yeah.
But the angle, those spinning, what do you even call them? Spinning helicopter? Jets. They need to come in contact with the dirty parts of your pots and plates and pans, right?
They do. And here's my next question. Do you use the sanitize and the heat dry setting?
I don't use sanitize because I find it ruins my mugs and stuff.
Yeah, it takes the surface off things.
Yeah. So like if it's just clear plates or white plates or just like basic stuff, pots and pans, yes. But my nice coffee mugs with the little things on them that I like, little cartoons, we have fun coffee mugs. Also, the lids of Tupperware, if you put them in the bottom shelf, they'll kind of melt and crack because it's too hot down there. Got to put them on the top shelf. But if you have it on sanitize, it'll melt your plastic lids.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of feelings, Caitlin. I'm having trouble getting them all out.
I didn't know that I had unlocked a trauma for you here, but I have. And that's fair because I think men do, I would guess, the lion's share of the correct dishwasher loading in most households. Because when I've just done a straw poll amongst my girlfriends, none of us really care. And we're all sort of the mind that whatever happens in the dishwasher is collectively none of our business so long as the dishes get clean. But the husbands are bothered by the fact that we don't care about this. And they enjoy the game of Tetris of getting it perfectly set up so that everything can have optimal cleanliness, which I respect.
And fit, like I dishwashers aren't huge. If I'm cooking more than one meal and not running it every meal, getting those two meals in there is kind of tough, or the dishes for them. Also, I'm not so into these like heteronormative gender norms, like the dude fixes everything and the woman buys the flowers or whatever. But in my household, if it breaks or stops functioning, it falls on me. And so her lackadaisical attitude on loading it, caring about it, not caring about the dirt trap, not caring about salting it, it's like it falls on me. And that's annoying.
It creates work for you.
I don't like work.
So
in your house, like what's the split of traditionally gendered duties?
I would say that neither of us do anything. So we're very egalitarian in that we both like to use an app to help us find people to fix things around the house. Like neither of us are capable, I don't believe, of fixing an appliance. That's never happened for us. Cleaning stuff I can do and I enjoy doing. I'm a bit of a cleaning psycho. So when it comes to a deep clean of something like emptying the trap on the dishwasher, no problem for me. Cleaning out the washing machine, you know how it gets all gunky inside where you pour in the detergent, the laundry detergent?
Yeah, sure.
I will do that. I will clean out the dryer filters. I will clean out the fans. I will scrub walls. Like I go crazy when I get into cleaning hyper focus. So I do all that stuff. And we have like a large balcony, but we don't have a backyard or yard work to do. So I think my husband does get off easy.
Yeah, I'm trying to think here. I guess paying someone to do it, like in New York, handymen cost $17 billion a minute.
Yeah.
So like, it's like anything in New York is like got this entry, even just to get a plumber over, it's like $500 just to walk in the door. And so like, I end up trying to fix stuff that maybe if I lived elsewhere, I would just, I don't know, call a handyman.
So could you plumb things if needed?
No, I don't do amateur plumbing or electric. I'm not that insane.
Okay.
I've thought about doing amateur electrical, but I've always called someone. Maybe someday.
You haven't gone to YouTube to try to do plumbing for your new
DIY
place?
surgery, DIY electrician, DIY plumber. There are certain things that should not be DIY.
Yeah, I agree.
And there's some handy dude out there being like, I can wire electrical sockets. I don't need an electrician. Like, dude, you're going to electrocute yourself. Caitlin Green, what a pleasure it was having you on the show.
As always.
I feel like we did a lot today.
Me too. We solved a lot of problems for the world.
Of all the times you've been on a radio show, this was definitely one of them. Caitlin Green, you can find her on the Jan Arden podcast. Caitlin, thank you again. When we come back, our foreign correspondent in the UK, Tony Five, has just returned from a funeral. What did he go through? We invite you in on an intimate conversation with a stranger about death. You might laugh, you might cry, you might shake your head. That up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Put us in a box. Go ahead. That just gives us something to break out of. Because the next generation 2025 GMC Terrain Elevation is raising the standard of what comes standard. As far as expectations go, why meet them when you can shatter them? What we choose to challenge, we challenge completely. We are professional grade. Visit gmc.com to learn more.
Oh my goodness, he's here. He's got a microphone. His name is Tony Five, probably. He's our foreign correspondent. I'm David Cooper. This is the last show.
David, hello to you. Hello to everybody in the Western-speaking English world. Tony Five. Tony Five. That's me. Tony Five. That's me. That's me. That's me. Me. All me.
I'm just not sure we're ever going to get better than the music that precedes us.
David, jingles first, content second. Remember that. That is our mantra. That is what we live by. The creed, I think they call it.
You have just gone to a funeral.
Yeah, a cremation.
Wow, I just take stupid, silly, and I just drop the bomb, and all of a sudden we're serious.
I think your girlfriend told me that the other day. So, it's been a tough week. I went to the cremation of my uncle. He's my mum's brother. It was a kind of clash of religions. And it just got me thinking. I was like kind of talking to you before we got on air. And it's kind of like I'm a Catholic, a Roman Christian, and I believe in Jesus and the cross and Judas and stuff.
Really?
And then
I thought you were like maybe spiritual. You're like you believe the literal words of the Bible.
Literal words of the Bible.
Okay, great. I support that. I should know that about you. I feel like I should have known that.
You didn't know I was a Roman Catholic? No?
I mean, I knew you were like Catholic in the sense, like my girlfriend's Catholic, like she was baptized, but she doesn't go to church.
Yeah. Do you remember when we met each other and I was wearing the Pope hat? I thought that was a clue.
I'm surprised they didn't nominate you. They wouldn't even let you in the conclave.
Well, David, I did go in for the running, but I think there was a little bit of racism involved.
Maybe.
You know, Pope, innit? The black Pope. And they're just not ready, David.
They're not ready.
They're not ready for a US female president and a black Pope.
You got the bald look, though. I feel like any good Pope should be bald.
I've got the outfit. I've got the voice. I've got the compassion and empathy to be a Pope. I do have a lot of fun at swinger parties. But apart from that, who doesn't?
How's your Latin?
Omne pomodite pom de terre.
I feel like of all the languages to make fun of and try to impersonate that it would come off to varying degrees of racist, Latin is like the best one. How could you possibly be racist making fun of Latin?
Wouldn't that be funny if you were the first person to get cancelled because of a Latin-based racist joke?
Are they a race? It's just a bunch of white dudes.
That's what.
Mostly white dudes in the Vatican. It's not,
You've just said, is Latin a race? So there's probably these people who speak Latin, not to be confused with Latino.
Yes, of course.
But Latin, yeah. And there's probably somebody who's revived the dead language of Latin, because they're like in most old unis in England. It's like a language that they still employ.
How does our show test in the Vatican? If so, it was testing well. It is now testing terribly.
Well, it was number 2. I think they did like a greatest hits album of the best hymns of the 80s. They were doing well. Ave Maria, Our Lady of Faith. And obviously Madonna came along. She just completely took them out.
Like a virgin. That was about Mary, I think.
100%, my friend. It was either them or 2 of our listeners.
We are going to get canceled for being sacrilegious. Okay, you're at this funeral. You're born Catholic. You have some varying degree of observance in your life.
Yeah, so like my mum was a Roman Catholic, and I think because I'm from a country called Mauritius, which is somewhere, and basically what they were all like born Christians, but a lot of them, when they married into various like communities, the other sisters, so my mum was one of 8, and it was her brother that died, so he's the only brother. They became Hindus. Now, technically, I'm a Hindon't. And he, and so like everybody at the funeral, cremation, was wearing white. And I was wearing a black suit, black tie, and being me. And it was it was the first time I'd ever been to such a thing. And there was lots of prayers in like languages. There was lots of chanting.
But your mother grew up with him Catholic. And so there's a bit of a divide there.
Yeah. And I think my mum was a little bit, I wouldn't say off, but I think she just was a bit sad that he hadn't been buried in the way that she had been brought up and stuff like that, and there wasn't a lot of remembrance about his life. They were talking about he was a divorcee, so they had 2 sets of kids there, the first set of kids and the second set of kids. We were all adults, and in the speeches it was really weird. They all talked about, oh, I'm from the first marriage, I'm from the second marriage, I'm from the first marriage. And I went up and I said, I'm the nephew from both marriages, which I thought was good, but it bombed.
Slade, you bombed?
Yeah, it bombed.
You should know better than to use a eulogy as an open mic, Tony. Come on.
Well, I did have a mic and I was on stage. Anyway, I had like 30 seconds to prepare. They only called me up at the end. And it was a little bit of a battle.
New material night.
Yeah, I thought, I'm going to do a work in progress tonight. So it kind of went from that focus being on the ex-wife to the new wife, to the ex-wife, to the new wife. And I felt there was a disconnect and there wasn't anything positive said. Like basically they were said, well, he wasn't perfect. And so the first set of kids were saying, well, he wasn't in our lives for a lot of the time. And then obviously the second set of kids only saw him when he was a lot older and, but there was only one joining, you wouldn't believe it. The kind of common feature of their conversations was that we all love martial arts. We've all been martial. So they just started waffling on like he was like Mr. Miyagi.
Karate chop.
Yeah, it was really strange. And then again, like I shouldn't laugh because it's very dark. It's called gallows humor. But kind of like they had a prayer master. They call him a pundit, which is like a guy who leads the prayer. And this guy waffled on. David, somehow he spoke about spirituality and got onto AI in his speech, in his eulogy.
In a funeral service? What?
Yeah, he said like AI is artificial intelligence, but spirituality is intelligent intelligence.
What?
Individually. I know, I'm sure he was getting paid by the word, because this guy, literally, because of the cremation, they were like lighting the fire, warming up the barbecue, and they couldn't push my uncle in.
I feel like this preacher, whatever, was practicing his next sermon using the mic as an open mic, and you were practicing your comedy routine using it as... Why couldn't this thing be more polished?
Listen, and also, like, because we were the last cremation of the day, and cremations are notoriously sort of conveyor belt, right? In goes out, one goes out the other. So there's in England, it's like that. As the congregation come in, the other ones are going out, and it's literally half hour. So we've gone on to 45 minutes. And do you know that thing you do to me when you roll your hands like, shut up, we're gonna go to break or whatever? I felt that there was a guy in the back doing that, and I wanted to go, guys, we need to go to advert now. Guys.
So in stand-up comedy, let's say you do a 10-minute routine, and the 9 minutes, they'll flash a light at you, sometimes a red light, sometimes a white light, and it's called getting the light. And if you go too long, if you go beyond that 1 minute warning, that's then called running the light. And it's extremely rude. And sometimes they'll like flash it more and more aggressively, like a strobe, to be like, get the F off the stage because you're ruining the show for everyone else. That's funny that you basically were trying to light the funeral director.
David, this was seeing the light then, right? Because my uncle's just ready to go. And they're just sort of sitting there waiting. And then, like, obviously with the cremation, you press a button, a curtain goes round and goes to the furnace, and he goes into the thing.
The deceased goes into
When they hit the button, a little child goes, "Where's he gone? Is it a magic trick?"
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Because I think only recently she'd gone to a magic show where obviously someone closed the curtain and they disappear and they reappear.
Did you take her to that magic show? I know you're obsessed with magic, and you said...
I love magic. I didn't take her. That wasn't my niece. But she screamed it out, "Where's he gone? Is it a magic show?" I was in absolute fits of... I was crying with laughter. Everybody else was mourning and crying sort of thing. But I just thought that was the most epic thing to say.
Well, my sincere condolences. It's always sad to lose a family member.
It's all right.
An uncle.
Yep.
Having said that, it sounds like a rather strange and at times humorous, if you can find the humor in dark, day.
He was strange and he was humorous. I think no better way to send off my uncle. Uncle Chris. Rest in peace, brother.
Maybe we could have the sermon leader, whatever, on the show. We could teach him how to manage a clock, because that's what we've done here with Tony 5. When we come back, we will get an update on Tony's dog dilemma. Tony has fostered a dog and is debating adopting him. Maybe you fostered a dog and have debated adopting it. That's what we'll tackle in a few moments. Did you want to say something, Tony?
Woof.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Summer's here, and Nordstrom has everything you need for your best dress season ever. From beach days and weddings to weekend getaways and your everyday wardrobe. Discover stylish options under $100 from tons of your favorite brands like Mango, Skims, Princess Polly, and Madewell. It's easy too, with free shipping and free returns, in-store order pickup, and more. Shop today in stores, online at Nordstrom.com, or download the Nordstrom app.
It's the last show. I'm David Cooper. We are joined by foreign correspondent in London, England, Tony 5, to get Donny Dive's dog dilemma, the Dinal installment.
Dear world, I know you've been on tenterhooks. Nobody knows what tenterhooks are, but they are tender and they are hookish. I fell in love with a dog, and I was adopting him, David. I was fostering for a while, and the charity that I was fostering means they basically come and stay with me. It's like doggy daycare, but they provide everything. You saw this dog, and this dog is, I'm not being biased, but it was a handsome boy, right?
No, when you think of foster dogs, you think of mangy looking, toothless, peg leg, pirate eye, bird on its feather, saying yar instead of woof. You don't always think of the most beautiful, like bred and gorgeous and shiny coat. And I got to say, your dog definitely flips the script. That looks like a designer dog. That looks like you spent $10,000 on that dog at a breeder.
And funnily enough, we believe he was. So we did a little bit of the checking. So we have microchipped the dogs here. So we knew he was 12 months old. Like literally last week, he was his birthday. He had been found twice running on the streets where the owners had just let him go out and do his thing. He was technically labeled as deceased on his tag, and it ended up in his charity because he was a puppy. And then they gave him to me.
So will they reach out to the people who the chip is registered to and they just don't answer the phone?
No, they reached out to the people and they said, keep him. We don't want him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you just discard? They shouldn't be able to just discard a dog like that, but forget about that side of things.
There is no law, although there are many people would like to take the law into their own hands when they hear of such a thing.
I mean, I'm not for, violent vigilantism, but I don't like this at all. And I think there should be some punishment. All right. Forget about these awful people. Dog ends up in the pound, ends up in the foster system.
Yep.
And for those who don't know, that's when you kind of take a dog in for several weeks so it doesn't have to stay in a cage,
Yeah. The reasonings are, kennels are very, very unhappy places for dogs. Imagine them it's actually like a prison. They don't get out to walk because kennels don't do that. They give them the minimum amount of care, which is food and water, and they've probably got maybe a 5 square meter area to play, but it's covered in their feces and their urine, and it gets cleaned out once a day. There's lots of noise, other animals there. So obviously when they get out, they're so happy to get out, and you're basically keeping a dog in a loving environment until they call them forever homes. So people would come to my house and meet the dog, and I'll assess them. Are they good? Are they good with their kids? And then they'll go. So the charity calls me up and says, we have somebody coming who would love to meet Frank. And it broke my heart. So all night I was thinking, oh my God, if he goes. But then that's called the fosterer's fallacy, because you want the dog to have the best life, but obviously you fall in love with the dog. So it's weird. It's a really negative connotation. But when a fosterer adopts a dog, it's called a failed fosterer.
Because they want that fosterer to be able to continue to foster.
Correct. So it's called a failed foster. So I sat down and even you were part of the considerations. Like, I'm coming to see you. Who would look after the dog in those periods that I come to you?
I mean, these are important considerations. Like how you're going to care for the thing when you travel is number one. Like, you have to have a plan.
Number one. Exactly. Can I afford it? Number two, if I've not been working, I was very sick recently. What would I do in that thing? But a number of people, and you said it, maybe an offhand comment saying, look, keep the dog, because it gives you a purpose, right? So for those who struggle with mental health, and I'm not saying everybody get a dog, but having somebody else to look after, maybe a child, like a pet is wonderful. I mean, studies have shown that being with a pet, stroking a pet, like you're with your cat, does actively reduce blood pressure, makes you calm. And that was, there has been research on it, and going out for a walk every morning, come rain or shine, it keeps your exercise and your mental health and acuity good. And I sort of sat there and thought, you know what? I've never owned a dog. I've always ever fostered. And yeah, so my official adoption day happened last weekend, and I get a certificate, and he's mine.
I'm so happy for you. I was saying you should really consider this, and I don't mean to do cliches on this show, but that old Einstein quote that reads something like this: insanity is arguing with strangers on the internet and thinking you'll win. No, he didn't say that. He said insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. There are certain practices in your life that you had that weren't working for you, that led to kind of a dark period in your life.
Yep.
And I can tell you, I thought nothing of pets. I thought they were a waste of time, money, energy.
Yes.
And then I got this cat. And I know it sounds stupid for those who don't know pets, and for those who do, it doesn't sound stupid. I used to be you. I used to be the one, when I heard something like this, I'd laugh and scoff. He is my best friend.
You don't sound like a pet person. And I find it so strange when you video me and there's a cat sitting on your head, or you say, look at what he did, or, you set fire to him on a dinner table that time.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe, sorry, for context, he didn't set him on fire. We were having a dinner. The cat jumped on the table and set his tail alight on a candlestick.
Yeah, my brother saved my cat's life by grabbing the cat's tail. Anyway, not important. Yeah, like last night he was nuzzling on my chest, cuddling me and purring. And I'm like, I love you, buddy. You're the sweetest little angel.
And they're not judgmental. They don't say anything to you.
Oh, he's a cat. He's obviously judgmental.
Oh, of course he is. But my one, Frank's great. When I get up in the morning, I went to a cremation recently and I wasn't feeling my best self. And, they kind of know they've got this sort of weird empathic power. And he come and laid on me and just kind of huffed and puffed. And then you've got to get up and that he's hungry or he's thirsty or he wants to go for the toilet. Yeah.
It's not an empathic power. It's not weird. If you look at the ancestors of cats, they were relatively small wild cats and humans were not their prey. And so it wasn't too far a stretch for them to hang around farms, domesticate themselves a little bit, breed out some unwanted traits, and in exchange, they would kill the mice and the humans would be nice to them. They kind of domesticated themselves and they weren't really ironing out an instinct to kill people. Whereas the ancestors of dogs, wolves, could kill people, and so they really were selected for their temperament. The ones that were rude and attacked people in the little village, 20,000 years ago, those ones would be killed and they would not have babies. So they were bred to love you, Tony.
Just amazing. And I've always found, I was like you, these dog lovers, it's like a cult. They walk around together. They oh my God, look. They treat them like children. They go to restaurants and have the dog laugh. What are these people on? This is really strange. And I have become my worst nightmare. I am that person. I am the one that I'm on the dog diet, David. Every meal I eat, the dog gets half of it.
Look, this cat melted my Grinch heart. I still feel this way about other people's pets, but for me, he's my best buddy. He's a sweetie. He's very affectionate. We're also on the cat diet. He's taken to not eating his meals unless we're eating dinner at the same time. And so if we feed him and then we're going to eat dinner a little later, he does a reign of terror where he just starts meowing at us until we go to the dinner table because he doesn't like to eat alone. And normally I'd think that was the most annoying thing in the world if someone told me that. I think it's adorable.
In your previous apartment, we never used to let him out, but does he go out in your new apartment?
No. You mean leave the home to the street?
Yeah, he doesn't. He's a proper house cat.
What are you nuts? I live in Manhattan, Tony. Yeah. What are you crazy? He wouldn't last 2 seconds out there.
I like the way you say that, like the other cats with leather jackets and flick knives just waiting on the corner for him. This innocent cat comes out.
No, they don't let rats are waiting for him. These city rats would take him down.
Yeah, I've seen them. Them city rats are bigger than your cat.
I ran into one last night and shrieked like a little schoolgirl.
How big was it? Was it massive?
Oh, it was huge. It was 175 pounds. No, it was
There's no need for that. I mean, it had a birth certificate, didn't it?
It was 12 pounds at least, this rat. It was huge.
Yeah, and ID? Was it carrying ID?
No, but just fake ID. Tony, what a pleasure it was. I'm so glad you adopted Frank, and I wish you well with him.
Thank you very much, my friend. I'm going to go and collect his poop now.
Tony 5 is our foreign correspondent from London, England. After the break, and there's a bit of a content warning on this topic, adult themes will be discussed. So sensitive listeners or parents with kids, you should be advised. We'll tackle an age-old assumption that people who are into rough stuff during adult time, BDSM, are not emotionally well regulated. That is not true, categorically, according to a new study that we'll cover on the other side of the break.
Part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Summer's heating up, but the savings are cooling off. It's your last chance to shop Blinds.com's Memorial Day mega deals. Blinds.com invented a better way to shop for window treatments, completely online with upfront pricing, no showroom markups, no salespeople in your home. Choose from classic shutters to outdoor shades and more, all backed by our 100% satisfaction guarantee. It's your last chance to shop Blinds.com's Memorial Day mega deals. Save up to 50% with minimum purchase, plus a free measure. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Please be advised that the following program contains audio content that may be graphic and potentially triggering for some listeners. This content may include descriptions or sounds that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is strongly advised. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
What if everything that you've heard about BDSM, bondage, discipline, sadism, and masochism, and those who practice it having emotional dysfunction, is wrong? Well, a new study finds out that kink practitioners actually score higher on secure attachment and well-being, and lower on neuroticism than the general population when studied. So it's not just some dark emotional stuff going on when people practice BDSM. It might be emotional intelligence in leather. I'm here with someone who's researched that. He's a psychology professor at the Complutense University of Madrid. His name is Dr. Óscar Lecuona. Óscar, thanks for talking to me today.
And thank you for having me, David.
Let's jump into our time machines to 2013, to a study that looked at BDSM, those who practice it, and mental health. What did that study say, and why revisit it?
Well, that study was actually pretty groundbreaking because it was basically the first study that approached this thing with some rigor and just administered some self-reports and some psychometric scales to our moderately okay and fair sample of people. And the shocking finding was that view of BDSM practitioners as dysfunctional, crazy, or broken was not met, like, at all. There was not a single finding that suggested that there was a pathological thing going on. And so that study was pretty seminal and groundbreaking, but the work just stopped there, apart from some exceptions. So the general climate in science that we got post 2017, 2016 was the replication crisis, where many findings started to be non-replicated, elevating the skepticism on all of the findings. So we thought that it was pretty okay and pretty necessary to check the replicability of these findings because they were socially relevant for us and also scientifically relevant to check it.
So when you revisited the study, were you able to confirm that fact, that those that practice BDSM on average are kind of well emotionally regulated, maybe even a little better than the rest of us?
Yeah, pretty much. So the main finding was not that they were better. The main finding was confirmed that they are not weird, they are not crazy, they are not dysfunctional. So that was the first secure thing that we found, that these are not crazy people.
So why do you think BDSM continues to carry such a stigma then, even when the data seems to consistently tell a different story?
Well, I can understand that the masses do not read scientific papers because they are not really engaging, I would say. So these observations that we are trying to find, they are just published in academic journals and not really aired enough in media. And the normal thing to happen is just stories, movies, etc., with the classical framework as BDSM as something dark, obscure, or even dramatic or whatever. And also we have the 50 Shades of Grey phenomenon that we have in previous years, where there was like a huge explosion of awareness about kink matters and BDSM matters, but also the characters in the film were also portrayed as kind of pathological, especially the guy, Christian Grey. So I think this was the main cultural factor in these recent years. That's why BDSM is still viewed as something kind of dark at some points.
What I'm hearing and what I've always believed is those depictions in 50 Shades of Grey are not accurate. They're kind of a little bit dark and not really an accurate portrayal of those who practice this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Traits like secure attachment, high conscientiousness, low neuroticism. This sounds like a dream dating profile. Should people be actually seeking out those that practice BDSM when dating?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. As I said earlier, we were in those years in the midst of a crisis, and now I think that science is recovering, actually. And these efforts to find some replicability are necessary because we actually didn't replicate the full set of findings. We replicated most of them, which I think is a really good finding. But I think that we need to work more. That's the main thing, that take it with some degree of skepticism and some grains of salt, because we need further work to confirm if this is real. And also, as you mentioned, I also have a personal view of the findings as kind of too good to be true, especially among dominants in BDSM, because they were the group that systematically were significantly different and significantly better at some point, because low neuroticism and higher conscientiousness, higher well-being, and higher secure attachment, it really fits on the social desirability bias that every one of us has. So I cannot tell if this is the factor that explains these findings because we didn't measure social desirability. And I think future studies should measure this thing and should rule out this hypothesis, because maybe it is explaining this pattern that we found, or maybe not. If it's not, then I would say, well, they are kind of more functional, not super functional, but kind of.
That's interesting, the different roles amongst those who practice this. There's, of course, the dominants, there's the submissives. Dominants found to have higher scores. What do you make about these patterns across different roles changing?
Well, I don't have a quote. I would say, I'm pretty honest. I don't think that having a specific role in BDSM practices should tell many things about your personality. I think it's the other way around. It's because you are some kind of people, some kind of profile, that you are more inclined to a specific role or a mixture of roles. So just knowing a person that is submissive, it's not very informative, I would say. I think there are more variables that are better to get that depiction of a person. We found basically that people that are switches that are basically mixture of submissives and dominants, people that are also submissive, were kind of in the same levels in all of the traits that we measured. The group that systematically was different from the others and also included non-practitioners were dominants. And I would say, okay, if this is true, then dominants are the special kind of people that explain most of this difference between practitioners and non-practitioners. But if this is just a bias or any other factor that can explain, maybe it tells more about social dynamics that a specific role in BDSM practices.
What do you say to people who associate or still associate BDSM and those who practice it consensually, causing harm to nobody, who are adults? What do you say to those that associate people who practice BDSM with like trauma and pathology and negative things, saying, oh, they must have had a rough childhood or something awful happened to them? Is this a stereotype? What would you say to somebody like that?
Well, I would say that it is definitely a stereotype, but I love the quote that I heard from an activist in these settings that were, just imagine for a moment that all of that were true. Like, imagine in an imaginary parallel universe where 100% of BDSM practitioners are people who had a rough childhood, have some trauma going on, and some emotional baggage. So what?
I mean, that's a great point, actually. 2 words, so what?
Yeah, it's like, that doesn't matter. What matters is that the actual practice is harmful or not. And now, well, maybe centuries ago was harmful because there were like no control or no knowledge about that. But right now, there is a cultural mainstream in BDSM practices that enable some safe, sane, and consensual practices. Or even further, we have the risk-aware consensual kink, which are basically ethics codes and normative beliefs among the BDSM community to differentiate what is abuse and what is a leisure activity. So that is what matters. Practicing BDSM, in principle, should not become abuse or harm at all.
Óscar, I've enjoyed the chat. Thanks for sharing your research with me.
Thank you. And also thank you for having me here.
Dr. Óscar Lecuona is a psychology professor at the Complutense University of Madrid. Ever felt like the winter was yesterday, you blink, and now it's summer? Time can fly, or at least feel like it does during periods of your life. And after the break, a psychologist who may have just cracked the key as to why. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show.
The NBA playoffs are here, and I'm getting my bets in on FanDuel. Talk to me, Chuck GPT. What do you know?
All sorts of interesting stuff, even Charles Barkley's greatest fear.
Hey, nobody needs to know that.
New customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. 21 plus and present in Virginia. Must be first online real money wager. $5 deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Your nightly dose of unfiltered opinions and unexpected conversations. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Ever feel like January was yesterday, but somehow you blink and it's already hot, sweaty summer? Well, time doesn't just fly when you're having fun. It flies when you're growing, like as a person. We are joined by psychology professor at the University of Kansas, Dr. Mark Landau, who found periods in our life that we associate with growth, satisfaction, and nostalgia might actually make time fly, whether they were fun or not. Mark, thanks for talking to me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
This is always such an interesting one, our perception of time. Why look into the way we feel it speeds up as we age?
Well, just anecdotally, I noticed that whenever I asked somebody about their summer or even their weekend, invariably they would complain that it was too fast. When I had a kid, people would constantly warn me that I need to really attend to these years because they're going to fly by. And this isn't a modern a gripe. Back around the time of the BCE to AD switchover, the philosopher Seneca wrote a book called On the Shortness of Life, where he tried to console people who were complaining that life is moving too fast. And so I've just observed that people always seem to be at odds with the pace of their life. And so I wanted to dig into the psychological mechanisms that make a period of life appear fast in retrospect.
I imagine there's common wisdom, old theories on this one dating back thousands of years possibly. What were they, and did they get things 100% correct?
Well, there are a few theories out there that are kind of non-starters. One is that, for a 10-year-old, a year is 1/10 of their life, whereas for a 40-year-old, it's a smaller percentage. But that just kind of redefines what the phenomenon is. It doesn't really explain it. But like a lot of things, a lot of matters psychological, one of the best answers was proposed by William James back in 1890. And James said that when we're younger, our everyday experience is richer. We're noticing things like a cool bug or the way the sun shines on the sidewalk. And so when we look back on a day or a week, many things happened. Whereas as we get older, we start to lump our experiences into bigger categories. So walking through a park would just be seen in retrospect as walking through the park for a 40-year-old, whereas for a 10-year-old, it would be a rich series of events. And so James kind of uses a spatial metaphor, as many psychologists have since then, basically says that when you look back on that period as though you're looking at a room or a hallway, there are fewer things that took place. And so it seems shorter, it seems to shrink. And when it shrinks, it seems faster. And so what my colleagues and I was just kind of boiled down. James, of course, said it much more eloquently, but we boiled his formulation down to two essential components, which is routine and the number of events perceived to occur in a period. And although James was talking about time accelerating with age, we felt like his analysis could be used to explain the perceived pace of any period, a week or a weekend or a year. And so we asked people about their past year or their past summer and said how much routine took place and then about how many events took place. And we acknowledged that that was an awkward question, and we kind of elaborated on what we meant by that. And then we simply asked them how fast it seemed to go. And one of the most remarkable findings, and at risk of sounding ignorant or boastful, although James's account is pretty much the accepted dogma in psychology, I think ours is the first to systematically examine this account empirically. And what we found was that the amount of remembered routine in a period did not reliably predict the perceived pace, and nor did it reliably predict the number of events perceived. So one of the most interesting things about our research is not what it found, but what it didn't find. It didn't find support for the widely accepted conventional answer for why time seems to fly, which is that it just becomes more routinized, and with routine, when we look back, fewer things happen.
Well, maybe you're too in your study because I kind of disagree with you. I think what you did find is interesting. Do you want to walk me through like perceived periods of growth and how we remember those?
Exactly. So as I'm reading all these theoretical accounts of why time flies, they're all towing James's line, basically saying it has to do with the number of events. And as we age, we just get kind of too smart and too capable. And so we're lumping our experiences into larger categories. So, the first time you took that commute, maybe 7 things happened, whereas the 25th time you took it, only 1 thing happened. But what I noted in all of these accounts, especially the literary ones, was the tone. And the tone was one of sort of, you have to remember James's account describes a very, what we call cool cognitive process. And by cool, I mean, it's not really wrapped up with affect. It's not really charged with emotion. It's just a matter of almost like a spatial metaphor, just looking at a room. Does it look full of objects or does it look empty? But people also kind of expressed a lament, and there was a tone of loss or deprivation that when they were a kid, when they were 7, the summer seemed to stretch on for eternity, and now a summer flies by in the blink of an eye. And what I gleaned from these accounts was that it wasn't just about the number of events, but it was about the extent to which one felt that one grew during that period. And so maybe time flies as we get older because we feel not so much that there are fewer events, but just that we did less personal growth. And by growth, I just mean expanding our capacities and discovering new things and expressing our curiosity and just generally exploring.
Do you think it's about something in those moments or more about the lens we're looking back at it with that makes it feel longer?
Well, it seems, I thought what happened was that as people age, or even not even people age, they look back and they feel like a period was bereft of growth promoting experiences. I felt like they would see it as wasted and therefore fast. And what we found was the exact opposite. And, it's frustrating at the time, but, it's very exciting when you do a study and you keep finding the opposite of what you predict, right? Because Mother Nature is kind of telling you that there is a pattern there, but it's just not what we think. So we kept thinking, okay, the less remembered growth in a period, the faster it's going to seem, right? If I look back on my spring break and I feel like I didn't do anything that was personally meaningful to me, and it was boring, and I don't have that time again, I feel like that time was wasted or stolen. And so it would seem fast. But what we found instead was that the more people felt as though they grew, the faster it seemed to be. We actually found a positive relationship, right? So the more growth, the faster it seemed to be. And so we couldn't figure that out. And so then we went back to the drawing board, and there was a nice give and take between the data and our theorizing. And we predicted that maybe times of growth are perceived as faster because we're longing for them, we're pining for them nostalgically, and we wish we could return to them. And so we feel as though they're sort of slipping away. Maybe when I look back on the past 5 years, I feel like I grew a lot as a person, but maybe today I feel like I've kind of plateaued in growth. And so I'm longing for that period. So I see it as passing by fast as a way to signal that I miss it, that long for it.
I have this third type where I know that I grew, but it was a really not that easy time for me. Like at the beginning of my career, my first job was brutal. I felt like I learned a lot, but I felt like it lasted forever. It kind of is a bit of both. I'm both nostalgic for it. I grew, but it was not a good time.
No.
Is this consistent with what you've seen?
Yeah, I think it's very consistent with what I've seen. And I think that that kind of ties into James's notion, right? One of the punchlines I give people is that the question is always, how can I slow time down? And my response is, you shouldn't. If time seems fast, you should take it as a compliment that you got too smart and too capable, because time tends to feel slower in those times when we're struggling. But when we're on autopilot, that's when time seems to speed up. So how to slow life down? Maybe don't. Maybe just take the quick pace of life as a compliment that you've mastered your surroundings.
I like that. Rather than change what seems fundamental to us, approach it with a different way of a different frame, a different way to look at it. Mark, I've enjoyed the chat. Thanks for this.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Mark Landau is a psychology professor at the University of Kansas. That is the show. Thank you for listening to it. If you'd like to catch up on any of our catalogs, subscribe to our podcast. More info at www.lastshow.pizza. That's lastshow.pizza, not .com. If you liked any of tonight's program, you're welcome. If you didn't like it, well, our producer Danny's responsible for it. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show. We'll catch you on Monday.